It is the Ed Conroy Show. I'm Brian Giffen with the coach, Ed Conroy, and we come your way live with the Ed Conroy Show from El Jefe here on King Street in downtown Charleston, 468 King Street to be exact. And, Coach, you've had a couple of days now to digest how things went in Chattanooga. Obviously, the week overall, you split 2 games over the course of the last week, and we'll look back over the last week that was the Citadel Bulldogs. Good news, you came back 68-66, the come-from-behind win against Mercer, first conference win of the year. That had to be a big lift, just given the way things have gone for you guys and how much transition you had to go through.
Well, really, really proud of our guys in that game. Mercer, year in, year out, is one of the more physical teams in the league, and I thought early on in the game it took our guys just a little while to adjust to the physicality. We kind of recruited with that in mind, and we, last year going through the league, we knew we needed some bigger bodies, and I thought, the Mercer game, Mercer got us 3 times last year, and I thought they were one of the teams we needed to really, step up our physicality. And so all the work in the weight room, everything paid off. We adjusted after a little getting down early. And then in the second half, played one of our better halves of the year, and a really terrific half on both ends. We were at about 1.5 points per possession, which is really difficult to do in basketball, and then at the same time we held them down, and had we're down 16 at one time. There has not been very many. I was trying to look it up, but there's only been maybe a couple instances in our entire history where we've been down by that many points in the second half and come back to win a conference game.
Elijah kind of went off, obviously, in the latter part of the second half of that game. He ends up with 21 for the game, went 11 for 11 from the free throw line, which in a game like that that's nip and tuck, close, everything counts. That's pretty clutch to go 11 for 11, and he hits that huge 3 with 40 seconds left. What a lift.
It really was, and I told our guys, and it's you have to be very disciplined to play this style of game, but just with our roster right now and what we were up against, I challenged our guys that we needed to get to the free throw line 25 times, and that meant being intentional in both halves about getting the ball inside with a paint touch on the drive, a post up, hitting the offensive boards, things like that. But we had to get ourselves to the free throw line, and we did in the first half. We missed some free throws that prevented us from playing better in the first half. But then in the second half, we got into that bonus early. So every time that they touched us or were physical us down the stretch, we were able to get to the free throw line. Elijah went there 11 times in a game where they weren't trying to foul you because you were up. It was just a normal, natural flow of the game. So our work early on really paid off late, and you have to be patient in order to do that, because you don't, for those first 6 fouls you don't shoot, and then the 7th, 8th, and 9th when you're only shooting a 1-on-1. We got to the double bonus and we were able to make them pay. And Elijah, seeing that ball go through on the free throw line, I think gave him confidence to step up and knock down the threes as well.
He's one of those guys anyway that's one of those sharpshooter guys, and if anybody leaves him half an inch, he can take over a game for you.
No question. And he's really shown that explosiveness this year several times. And we work very hard whenever Elijah, makes a 3, which we're trying to get him naturally throughout the course of the game. But anytime he makes one, we try to come right back with a set. It's one of the things I probably have taken from my different travels and working with different guys. But Jerry Stackhouse at Vanderbilt was, with that NBA background, was really, really good at making sure that he had sets ready to go, and our guys would know them, pet sets, if you will, to go right back to somebody if they had the hot hand. And we did it with Austin Nash last year, and Stephen Clark, and now we're with Elijah, especially when he gets going from 3. We try to go right back to him.
You mentioned the fact that you guys did trail by as many as 16 points kind of early in the second half of that game, and that's happened a little bit here lately, but it speaks volumes, I think, for the amount of fight that's in the team, that you've routinely fought your way back into these games. You haven't always gotten over the hump. In this one you did.
No doubt, and we need to be, play a little bit smarter. We need to be a little bit more connected on the defensive end, so we don't let teams spurt on us early. But in the Mercer game, even though we were down, if you remember, it was only 6-3, I think, at the 13-minute mark. It wasn't like we came out and didn't defend early. We did.
Right.
But then when our guys got a little bit fatigued and worn down a little bit, we gave up some points there. And like I said, when you're playing that game of trying to go to the free throw line, you have to be patient, because it's going to pay off at the end of halves. And so early on in the half, you might be down 4 or 6. But if you got that bonus working in your favor, and we are one of the few teams in the country, we've been intentional about that all year, and one of the few teams in the country where we have made more free throws than our opponents have attempted. And if you look that up, that's one of those stats that Very few teams can do it year in, year out. Wisconsin is one that does it. Purdue is one that does it. North Carolina usually, because they have that size on the interior, they can do it. But not many teams can do it, and we are amongst those few doing it this year. In fact, I think we're 4th in the country in free throw attempts. So our guys have been really good about doing that. And unfortunately, when you don't knock them down, when you get in that bonus, it can make you look like you're pretty stagnant. But because that's like a turnover. If you miss, if you on the 7th, 8th, and 9th foul, if you miss the front end of a 1-and-1, that's like a turnover. It's an empty possession. The other night, unfortunately, we've been good shooting the free throws all year, and we work hard at it. But the other night, Chattanooga, that was one of the things in the first half. We played really well offensively, but we missed 2 front ends of the 1-and-1 and 1 2-shot free throw. That's 6 points right there in that swing against Chattanooga. Really, really big.
They were a pretty good team, too. We'll transition and talk a little bit about that game next. 90-62 ends up being the final score. They pulled away a little bit late in the first half. They dominated more or less head-to-head in the second half, but you really played right there with them the majority of the first half of that game, and it kind of got away, then you couldn't ever quite get back over the hump.
They played very well, so hats off to them.
Right.
Give them credit. They made a lot of shots. They made a lot of shots early that were the shots we wanted them to take. They weren't really killing us from 3 early. They spurted on us in the beginning of the second half and then really got their transition going. We've been really trying to reinvent ourselves a little bit, if you will, and a lot of that comes, and you can see it in our assist total, but that's 2 games in a row. Chattanooga, we had 15 assists. We only had 9 turnovers. Those turnovers were very costly. They seemed to be in the open court, were ones that they scored off of. But that was one of our high assist totals for the year. Our guys were starting to share the ball better. We don't have all those interior threats we had when we had Winston and Christian, and so they're sharing the ball, moving a little bit better. We have to take care of it better, and we have to be better in our transition defense. We call it our conversion defense, and that's where we really need. With who we have now, we have plenty. We have enough to win, and I told our guys we don't have what we did have, but we have enough, and it's got to start with our conversion defense. We have got to get the people's fast breaks under control and get out there and defend that three-point line.
Even though the point differential at the end of the game was spread out a little bit more, those have been few and far between. The one element of it is whether you've lost the 11 or 12 games, whatever it is, you've been right there at the end of them, and you've really fought, to the horn at the end of them, and that speaks volumes, I think, for the character of the team and that the future is bright.
Well, no question, and our young guys are learning, but there is a lot of fight in them, a lot of competitiveness, and we have some great leadership there with Elijah and Q, and we're not going to give in. We've said it many times, but we have to continue to expand our bench, find a few minutes here and there. There's plenty of season left, and I expect those guys. They are. I see it in practice. They're getting better and better. And if we can expand that rotation a little bit, get our minutes down just a little bit, keep that high level of intensity for a longer period of time in the game, not have those lapses. I feel really good about us because we have been competitive with everybody, and I feel like we can win anytime we go out there.
One of the points that Elijah made on the postgame when we had him on after the Mercer game was, and it makes total sense, that you really have to kind of preach stay the course when you have a primarily young roster that way. And, oh, by the way, it's the beginning of the conference season right in the middle of the year, and we have to reinvent ourselves. But you have to preach a lot of stay the course there and keep working, don't you?
No question, and I think you're starting to see some signs of, we're staying the course and making progress. Like I said, the score at Chattanooga is not what we wanted, and we let it get away from us a little bit, but it was pretty evident and easy to pinpoint where we let that game get away from us in guarding that three-point line. And but you saw the emergence of Keenan Davis in that game. That's back-to-back games now. I think he's played really well, and I thought he was borderline fantastic in that Chattanooga game. And so that really bodes well. We found another weapon out there. I think those guys off the bench are right now than he did before, but and we knew he had that in him, but it just takes some game reps and some experience.
Well, and it only helps, and you speak of the freshman guys between Cam and Levi, both those guys missed a chunk of time with illness or one thing or the other too, and that's just the nature of the season. Next man up.
It is, but they're starting to be able to be out there consistently in practice, and you're starting to see those reps pay off, and I think it's just a matter of time before they pay off in a game, and then when we can expand that rotation just a little bit, I think you can see our core group of those 4 guys that have logged so many minutes for us. You can see them play at a higher level of intensity for a longer period of time.
Well, now we have one of those Pack the MAC games this Wednesday night against Furman, day after tomorrow. I'd like, in your words, to let the audience know what a difference that makes to have a passionate crowd in the building there supporting you.
Oh, it really does. there's all kinds of stats I could throw at you. Just watching it in person, this is my 35th year, I think. And thinking back to my playing days, it's amazing what can happen with a home crowd behind you. And the core, when they're there and involved, they can give a home court like no other. And so, a great emotional lift to our guys. We're counting on them to really help us get through and maybe find another level of our play that can carry us the rest of the year. So, hoping this game can be a catalyst and encourage them all to come out there and help us out and really get the job done on this. But you look around college basketball, 70% of the time the home team wins. And I looked at the stats the other day of the top 25 teams in the country. Even when they've gone on the road, they have only won around 30 or 35% of the time, and that's the best in the country. So when you come into our place, McAllister, that should be a place that we hold serve. It's more important than ever, as talented as our league is, to win your home games. I think our season ticket holding crowd has been good all year. We really need the core in there to bring that energy and bring it alive.
And we saw it, honestly, when we were at VMI last Saturday. I mean, the difference Saturday before last, the difference that it makes to have that loud, passionate crowd, the core. I mean, they were right behind me. I was intimidated. I'm just a guy sitting there calling the game.
No, they are very dedicated to their Saturday home games, and they have a great home court advantage up there at VMI. But like I said, I don't think there's anything better than when the Citadel Cadets show up and McAllister Fieldhouse is rocking. It's one of my favorite places to play of all the places I've ever been in. So excited to see what it looks like on Wednesday night, and hopefully we can really get that thing, really get it going.
Well, this Pack the MAC game, that is 7 o'clock day after tomorrow, this Wednesday, as the Bulldogs take on Furman. And the Bulldogs owe Furman a little bit. Went up there a couple of weeks ago. We'll talk a little about that now. They won the other meeting up at their place a couple of weeks ago. If memory serves, that was the game where Alex Williams for them kind of went off from three-point territory. And that's one of those that you guys were in that lull where people were hitting some of those open threes, and I would guess your game plan will be a little different when you see them this time.
Well, we really have to, the game plan will be pretty much the same. The execution of it hopefully will be a lot different. We know we have to get back and get set in transition defense. They really try to fly the ball up the floor in a hurry. They're prolific shooting the three. That's really what they do so well. They're really good on the perimeter. We just have to do a better job, and we're suited to do it with our lineup right now. We just have to do a better job of getting out there and getting back and set, and so our communication will have to be better. And then on the offensive end, we were able to beat them here last year, only team to beat them in their last 16 games,
right.
and I thought we were able to really grind them a little bit and screen them and things like that, and we need to get back to that and execute.
These conference opponents you certainly know well, maybe not like it was in the past where guys are there 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it is, but as much as you know these guys, from one time that you see them to the next, based on how that game goes, how much does it alter how you plan to go at them or attack them the next time, having seen them once this year already?
Well, it's great question, and I think as coaches we can judge because we've watched so many games and we know those guys. We've watched them in high school.
Right.
We've probably either recruited them or recruited guys on their team. So we have a great level of confidence in how just knowing what they are. But there's nothing like a player getting on the court with somebody and judging, someone else's quickness or length or ability to recover, things like that. So. Our young guys, as you know, we don't have any juniors or seniors on the roster. Like, it's the first time for a lot of them seeing those guys in person. And no matter what we show them on film, it really helps them get out there on the court and kind of see for themselves.
It's really good to see both Christian and Winston back around the team. Christian, of course, just came back. And as much as those guys can't contribute on the floor, certainly from the standpoint of the cohesion and the chemistry with the other guys, they can be there and have their backs, so to speak.
No question. I love having those guys, even at practice, around the team, anything they're doing. And we're trying to, they're both trying to pursue, and like Winston was on the radio with you, and I love seeing that. Like, thinking about this, some things in the future that can give them some great experience. But their energy and enthusiasm and their smile every day it's great to have around. I enjoy having around. I know the guys on the team do. So we're thrilled to have them with us.
What would you say as we touch on Furman one last time here, and then we'll move into our first commercial break? What would you say is the toughest aspect of preparing to take on that team, having seen them so much?
They're just they do a really good job of spacing the floor and they're able to do that because of their skill level. They have so many three-point shooting weapons that they can really spread you out. And so the speed of them running their offense is really the toughest thing. Make or miss, they're going to get that ball through and get it out. We played terrific against them last year at home.
Right.
We were able to get the win. But even in that game, I called a timeout early because the speed, they were getting out and transition us early and had an early lead on us. I think only one game in league play this year have they not led after 6 minutes.
Wow.
And that was the game, their last game against Wofford. Wofford was able to beat them at Wofford, and Wofford had the lead. But Furman is notorious to come out, start quick, and really jump on you with the speed and skill level they have on that offensive end.
Yeah, just kind of bury you early and then play tag with you the rest of the way, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, we will take our first break now. This is the Ed Conroy Show, and we're live at El Jefe. We do this every Monday throughout the basketball season. We're thrilled to have you with us, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on radio, and those of you that have ventured into El Jefe as well. And the Ed Conroy Show is presented by Cutwater Spirits. Right here we take a timeout. Joe Mack is running us in our studios at WQNT, and we will send it to Joe for a break. Back with more of the Ed Conroy Show right after this timeout on the Citadel Bulldogs Radio Network. All right, so what I'll do is I'll bring Madison up next. El Jefe here in downtown Charleston. It's Brian Giffen, Coach Conroy in the building as well. And, of course, we talk Citadel basketball for an hour every Monday night from 7 to 8. And our guest now is Cameron Wells, an assistant coach. Coach Cameron Wells, assistant coach at the Citadel. And we were just joking a little bit during the break. Look, this time last year, man, you were putting the uniform on and you were playing.
Yeah, it was. I was in Poland at this time. I think we had a Polish Cup last year around this time, so we were definitely road tripping and playing some games.
This is your first year in coaching, and you played professionally primarily in Europe over the years. How has that transition largely gone for you?
It's just going from really trying to train and teach myself how to play and watching film for myself to going now to watching film for other guys and trying to translate what I learned and trying to give back through teaching and talking and more demonstration rather than kind of doing the work myself and going out there and getting stuff done.
How much at key moments is there that ache inside? I want to get out there and make the shot.
Oh, man, all the time.
It's just
I see it, and I'm like, man, I wish I could get out there and help these guys out. And, that time is over with. So now I'm trying to transition to something else and just trying to improve on that and help these guys the best I can.
Are there specific things that were elements that were strengths in your game that you feel like those specific things you can impart to these guys as a coach and try to help them get better?
Well, I see my game in a lot of them. Marcus, Madison, just the ability to get to the hole and get to the rim. Having bigger guards who can post up. I posted up a lot when I played for Coach Conroy here. Just using my speed and transition and some of the defensive stuff. So I just try to translate what I learned from him and some of the things that I learned overseas and try to instill that in them and just kind of pass it along.
There was a great piece that our friend Andrew Miller from the Post and Courier wrote a couple of weeks ago talking about Madison, who will join us here in a little bit, and about being in that role. And it's a fairly demanding role on this particular roster with Coach Conroy's approach to play. A former point guard himself.
Right.
You were in that role as a
Right.
player. Talk a little bit about the expectation that goes with that and how tough it can be.
I mean, I got yelled at a lot. I mean, I'm sure he can tell you we used to have the same kind of practices, 4-hour practices. I mean, it was a lot, but these guys can do it, and I try to tell them that every day. You just got to stay encouraged and lean on one another. But he definitely requires a lot, but I think he does that because he sees so much in these kids. Like, he knows they can do it. He sees the talent, he sees the skill, and he's just trying to challenge them to get to where they need to be.
Such a critical role, the point guard role anyway, and in terms of the way the team runs and how the ball is distributed and how things are kind of captained on the floor. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, yeah, you're supposed to be a coach on the floor, basically, and that kind of took me time to understand, and it'll take them time too. Got to realize Madison's only a sophomore,
right?
Even though he plays with maturity, and you think he's a little bit older than he is, but he's only a sophomore. He's going to get better at that, and I think that just comes with experience and reps.
Do you find that in the process now of teaching, and as a guy who led when you were a player, how much do you try to impart the elements of where a guy should be leading in what you're teaching him?
That's a good question. I mean, I think you just kind of give him time. Just kind of have patience with him, give him time. Know he's going to make mistakes, but through those mistakes he's going to learn, good or bad. And you just kind of just keep working with him. Just keep being patient, keep encouraging him. And you see, as the season's gone along, he has improved. A lot of guys have improved. You saw Keenan last game. I mean,
right.
Kind of a come-out game for Keenan. So these guys are definitely getting better.
Let's talk a little bit about the time that you spent now playing overseas. Culturally, for one thing, it's a whole different world. I mean, to go to – you're in a place where essentially nobody really speaks your language. You're
right.
probably limited in terms of how much you can speak to. When I lived in Germany as a kid, I learned what I called street German, enough to get around.
Yeah,
enough to ask, where's this, where's
right.
that. But that's got to be a whole different ball of wax in terms of, interacting with fans and things like that, media coverage, all those things. Can you speak to the difference and maybe or some differences in your mind that stood out from your time there as opposed to
right.
playing college ball here?
I mean, well, a smile goes a long way. So when I didn't understand something or somebody was talking to me, I would just smile and kind of nod my head, and that kind of got me along for a good bit. But it definitely is a little bit different. You got to realize I was used to the mess hall and the laundromat.
Right.
So when I got over there, I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know how to clean my own clothes. So I burnt a lot of stuff. I messed up a lot of clothes. And, again, it's just a learning experience. So that part was kind of the maturity part I had to learn. Then culturally, it was just, just kind of getting used to going to the grocery store, and the grocery store works a little bit different there. The food is a little bit different there. And then, again, it's just time after time, you just kind of get used to it and just kind of fall in place.
How did you find the travel over there? I would guess it'd be a whole different variety of means, probably train, all kinds of things.
Oh, it's train. The flights are only like $59 to go from country to country. So once you actually get over there, it's cheaper. But when you're trying to get there from here, it's pretty expensive. So it's definitely a lot different. It was, and I really enjoyed my experience going to every country and learning from all the different people that I met.
It's interesting how, kind of the European or that area of the world influence in the way the game is played has really come more and more mainstream over here. And what I'm talking about are some of these guys that are 7 feet tall that can shoot threes and all this stuff. And that whole European element, it really has taken over in the NBA. It's taken over all over college. And you're seeing a real change in the way the game is played based on how it's been played in other parts of the world.
Right. I mean, if you look at the Southern Conference, the way a lot of these teams run their offense, a lot of side-to-side ball screens, movement to each side, cutting back door. That style is really European style. I think that has changed. The three-point shot has become more important. It was important when I played, but now it's even more of an emphasis to kind of get more shots up from there. And I think it will keep continuing to progress down that direction. But I like it. I think it's an exciting ball to see these guys and see the height and all the different things they can do. I think it's good basketball to watch.
How much do you impart to guys that are young guys, freshmen in particular, that are kind of new to this whole culture? Look, being a student athlete's a tough deal because you've got your class load, you've got all the practices, all the work, all the meetings, all the things, the travel, the things that go with it. And at the Citadel, you add in the military component as well. That's a lot of stuff to juggle right there. And as a guy who went through that, did that, graduated from it successfully, and went on, played in the pros and are back here, how much do you impart and how much can you help guys with that process when they get here?
I think it help out a lot. I think that's what me and Coach JR are here for, is just kind of to give back what we learned from Coach Conroy and use our experiences to help them kind of navigate, not just from what we did correctly, but also teach them from the things that we did wrong or wish that we did better while we were here.
Basketball and really college sports in general, and I don't have to tell you, it's changed so much the last couple of years, but it really has changed significantly in the years since you played, too, when you left in 2011. What are the things that jump out at you when you look at the way the game is now as opposed to how it was from 07 through 11 when you were here? World of difference.
I think threes. I mean, they get these threes up over here. They love shooting those threes. And I would say that they use more team basketball. I remember when we played, each team kind of had 2 or 3 major guys. They had Gowlock. App State had Donald Sims. Each team kind of had 1 or 2 main guys that they really went to. And now I think it's more focused on team basketball. Like I talked about, the continual motion, side-to-side basketball, trying to get everybody more involved and more of a team aspect.
There's the element, too, of, you never want people to get too high or too low.
Right.
And of course, during this stretch where you guys open conference play, the injuries, all the things that happen, so it's a tough go playing games. It's like I was talking to Coach about a little bit ago. Part of what you're doing is trying to keep guys' heads up and keep them focused on what they're doing. But the other thing is you go out and win a game now. You can't get too high from that either. It's just the same amount of work. You just got to keep grinding.
Yeah, basketball is a game of runs. You sometimes you can be up, and then the next thing you know, you're down. I mean, we've had a few games like that. The Idaho State game was a crazy game. The Mercer game was the same way. So you just got to stay even keel and just stay focused on the goals and just stay together as a team and just keep grinding through the season. You never know what can happen at the end of it.
As a guy who played here and went here and all those things, I don't have to tell you about the rivalry that exists with Furman as it is just because of geography and everything else. They are coming up Wednesday. That's a Pack the MAC game, and I'd love for you to give me a couple recollections of when you played against them and maybe some big moments against Furman. If you can think of them now.
It's been a while. Like I don't remember a lot. I remembered a lot of games. Honestly, I don't remember a lot of the games. I really don't. But I remember the atmosphere was always pretty good. Against College Charleston, Wofford, Furman, those games are always pretty packed, and the atmosphere was always pretty good. So I'm excited for Wednesday, and I know we're going to come out there and give our best effort, and I think the guys are ready, and we're ready for another win. So it's going to be a great game.
Coach and I were talking about this, too. What a big lift it is to have, a big crowd that's noisy and is into this thing from the beginning.
It's good sometimes you can't think. You can't overthink. You can't hear yourself. You just focus on the next play. And then you have people encouraging you and cheering you on. So it is a big boost to our guys, and it definitely always helps.
Yeah, we really appreciate you coming over and sharing some time here on the Ed Conroy Show. Obviously,
you having me.
congrats on your coaching debut. But,
Thank you.
but like I said, man, you still look like a guy that can play, too.
I appreciate it.
That is Cameron Wells spending some time with us here on the Ed Conroy Show. We're live at El Jefe. We do this on Mondays, and we're going to do it next Monday, too. If you're not here this week, you certainly can be next. And you can join us on radio for these also at 7 o'clock every Monday right here on 102.1 The City and 1450 AM. The Ed Conroy Show is presented by Cutwater Spirits. And in a moment, we've talked to a former point guard this year. Now we're going to talk to this year's starting point guard, that being Madison Durr. That'll come your way on the other side of this timeout. More Ed Conroy Show right after this on the Citadel Bulldogs Radio Network. Great stuff, man.
Okay.
Yeah. Great stuff. It's the Ed Conroy Show. And El Jefe, of course, at 468 King Street, right here in downtown Charleston. Brian Giffen, the voice of the Bulldogs. Ed Conroy in the building, of course, over there visiting with some Citadel faithful at the moment. And our guest now is Bulldogs point guard Madison Durr. Hey, this is probably your radio debut, man, so welcome aboard.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right, so Madison Durr with us, and let's talk a little bit about how things are going. Obviously, the team right now sits at 9-12. Everybody knows what's happened with the injuries and some of those kinds of things, but you've had a lot of things to overcome, and to have to overcome all those things in the middle of the season.
We have good wins. We have some okay losses, but, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So, I mean, something you got to figure out. I mean, reinventing yourself isn't easy. It's not something you want to do, but change is what's needed right now.
You know, the game is it's such an ebb and flow. Excuse me, it's such an ebb and flow kind of thing. And you look back at the VMI game, for instance, where you guys just had an uncharacteristically tough day shooting the basketball. And then you get into the Mercer game, the one that you won earlier this week, and all of a sudden, you know, you kind of struggle a little bit shooting the ball in the first half of that one, but kind of in the second half it gets going and it clicks into place and Elijah starts to hit. And confidence-wise, those things really are big to get you over the hump when things aren't going well, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, confidence is what the sport is. At the end of the day, you can say somebody can't shoot, but they have enough confidence, enough trust from their teammates in the crowd. I mean, you're going to do things that you're not normally doing. You mean, you can look at us. We shot 1 for 18 from 3 at
Right.
VMI. I mean, I think it's probably going to be our hardest road game all year. But, I mean, we come around at Mercer, we start off slow, but then the crowd gets into it, and Elijah, I think, rolls off 6. So, I mean, it's just something that happens. Confidence is a killer. So, I mean, that's something you want to have.
This is your second season here, and I'd like to get your thoughts now on where you are now as opposed to where you were when you got here. And I would guess you'd say a pretty big difference because there's a learning curve when you first get to this level.
Yeah, I mean, when you're a freshman, you try to tell yourself there isn't one, but when you come in, you're wet behind the ears. You don't know the difference
Right.
between a media timeout and a regular timeout. You don't know the difference between how people want to play and flows, and you realize that it's just a different skill level. Like at this level, everybody can shoot, dribble, pass, and I think that's the biggest thing that you learn. And there's a kind of energy that you have to play with. There's a thing that every possession you're on the court, you have to play hard or you can get beat by anybody. And I think we've seen that over my last 2 years here.
Well, you look over the course of the season, too. Or earlier in the year, they were not counting on you as much to score, but as it became necessary, you've certainly chipped in and done so. And it appears that unselfish has got to be really one of the first things on the checklist to play point guard.
Yeah, I mean, point guard, your job at the end of the day is to get a win. So, I mean, some games I have to score. Some games I just need to get a bunch of assists. Some games I just need to defend. So, I mean, that's kind of like the thing that's always been told me about being a point guard. But, I mean, now it's just more so trying to get a win. So some days I have to score the ball more. Some days I don't really need to because let's say AJ or Elijah gets rolling. And my thing is keep us steady, keep us in the right pace and state of mind to win a game.
It's funny how much a season has such ups and downs, peaks, valleys, all that stuff. You look back to, when you guys went up and knocked off Notre Dame up there, that was kind of a high. Then, you blow out Toccoa Falls. That's kind of, nobody was surprised by that. It's a D2 opponent. It's kind of the last non-conference game. But you were on a little bit of a roll going into the beginning of conference play, but also, AJ's banged up. And then, Christian's been out for a couple of games. And then you lose Winston. And it's amazing how quickly it can change.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, it's a season. I mean, you're going to go through things that you don't expect it. I mean, if we could look at it, I think if we all can look back and say we would have saw this now, then we'd all be crazy. But, I mean, we couldn't. So, I mean, that's something you have to go along with and kind of figure out as you go.
And the other thing is, changing the style of play is one thing. In reality, you guys kind of had to change your identity a little bit because of the way you were playing and were built to play early in the year, but then necessitated by the next man up thing and guys going down, you really had to change the identity of what you're doing a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, totally. When you take Winston Hill at the lineup, you're looking at a different team. When you have Winston Hill, I mean, you throw it down there to me, they're going to double him, you're going to go for 50. And that's just the confidence we had in him. Without Christian, I mean, Christian was the backup for, you could say, or kind of just like that glue guy that just comes in, does random things that work, and that helps us. So, I mean, losing both of those two, I mean, you're putting Key into a lineup is a much smaller body, but he's a much more agile, much more versatile player. So, I mean, now instead of us playing 3-round-2 more so because we have Q and Winston, now you're playing more so 4-round-1 with a lot more presence from the guards in the post. So, I mean, we're kind of picking up in different areas, but we kind of lost some without Winston. But, I mean, we're figuring it out. It's only January.
And it also is, it's not a 1 or 2 game kind of thing. It's a constant process that you have to not only reinvent, but also reinforce what you're doing the rest of the way, it would seem.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a constant thing. Like, different games. Like, if we had Winston versus Mercer, I think it's a totally different matchup. You have to guard 2 players instead of 1. I think if we go to VMI, we're not that 1 for 18 doesn't look so bad because maybe we only shoot 10 because we have just more presence down low. We put them in foul trouble earlier. So, I mean, there's a bunch of games I think there's a lot of games that have been up 5, down 5 with getting to 5 minutes. So, I mean, I think we can get those back, but we'll see them again in the second half.
There was a piece that Andrew Miller from the Post and Courier wrote a couple of weeks ago on you embracing the point guard role. It's a tough job and obviously such an important role as we talked about. Obviously in Coach Conroy's offense, it's particularly important. Can you talk a little about your progress and maybe just how difficult sometimes it is to stay on the right page?
I mean, as a point guard, you're basically the head coach on the floor. So, I mean, whereas you might think, as a player, you might think you didn't do something right, whereas maybe you're just going too fast, so somebody else called the turnover. But at the end of the day, it comes back to being on your fault. But, I mean, as my development last year, 2 years under Coach Conroy, I mean, I think I just learned how to be a true point guard, kind of learn how the flow of the game go, how to actually have a good feel for the game. And I think that's something I had coming in, but it was at a different level, it was at a high school level. So, I mean, now you're playing guards that are just as talented, if not more talented, or teams that have different things I haven't seen before. So, I mean, now I think I've seen kind of every style I can see.
Communication is such a big deal out there, and in that role, can you talk a little about how you communicate during the course of a game and what you might be directing traffic-wise as it goes?
Defensively, I feel like I'm one of the anchors. I'm the guard, kind of anchor cues, kind of ball screen. I'm kind of defense anchor, but on offense, you'll see me throwing up a lot of hand signals. I promise you, they're not for kicks and giggles. Sometimes, like we can't hear it, so it might look kind of crazy on TV sometimes. But I mean, I'm more so trying to get people set, get the play in. Make sure it's something, if they take away something, let's say they go like a random zone, trying to get the play call in. So I kind of have to know everything, so in case the worst happens, we're prepared for it.
In the role that you're in and having been in that role now for 2 seasons or one plus season, you really are already in a de facto leadership type of role. And as a sophomore, you're going to be in that type of role for a couple of years yet. Can you talk a little about the leader type elements of Q, for one, Winston for however long you guys had him, and he continues to lead even though he's not playing on the floor, and then Elijah. Those guys have been invaluable for a roster that's largely underclassmen, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, you talked 3 guys that probably played more basketball than all of us will play ever. I mean, Elijah's been in college 5 years, Q 6, Winston 6. I mean, they've been there a long time. They've seen a lot more than we could ever see. So, I mean, just from Q and Winston down low, just understanding, being able to help the bigs kind of develop. And I mean, Elijah helping him bring the guards along, even if it's including myself, just because I haven't seen as much as he has. But bringing all of them along, and then me and AJ kind of being that secondary role to bring everybody else along. But I mean, I think Elijah's taking care of the guards, and Q and Winston are still taking care of the bigs.
You know, it's funny, as much work goes into it, and yeah, of course, college sports is big business and all that, but there is still an element in there of you got to have fun too. You got to have fun out there, man. It's a game.
Definitely. I think fun comes with winning, but I mean, I also think fun comes with the process of winning and learning how to win. I mean, it's not always pretty. It's not supposed to be. If it was always pretty, then it wouldn't be real. So, I mean, we're having fun. I mean, the scoreboard might not depict it, but I mean, we know that we're putting the right steps forward to get to where we need to be in March. I think that's the biggest thing for us.
Coach and I were talking about this a little bit ago. You guys had that pattern. It really happened in the Mercer game, too, where you kind of dig yourselves into a hole and you fight your way out of it. Now, you haven't gotten over the top in a number of those games, but you've kind of gotten your way all the way back in the game, and you've been right there and just haven't gotten over the top. It seems like if you can find a way to get off to a quicker start and or prevent them from burying you into a hole, so to speak, you're going to have a much better chance to win games.
Yeah, I don't think there's been a game we've been up at half or even close to, maybe within 5, maybe VMI, maybe. We're always down 7, 10.
Right.
So they come out, we have to kind of be perfect coming out of half, but sometimes we're not. So now we're digging a hole. But, I mean, it's that 16 to 8 minutes where we're just literally trying to dig and claw our way back. And I think you saw that with the Wofford game, the UNCG game, Sanford somewhat, Western somewhat, and even Mercer. And, yeah, I mean, we're always down trying to dig ourselves back. And I think right now is our kryptonite. Everybody can say we're a second-half team, but in this league you can't be a second-half team.
Right. Well, chemistry is an important aspect. It's such a long season. There's so many games, the travel, all those things. And it's obvious that this group really is pretty close-knit. All you guys seem to get along well. You know, there's an old adage, you don't even have to be friends to be good teammates. But I think it helps if you like the guys you're playing with and you guys as a group kind of like to hang out together and spend time with each other.
Well, I mean, you have 16 players, 13 are all within the age of 18 to 21. Right. So, I mean, we all kind of want to do the same things. We all kind of want to be young college kids. I mean, but we're also committed to being basketball players. I mean, you have Q, Winston E, who still, like, they understand that and they still want to be around us. So, I mean, we spend about a good majority of time together. If we're not together, we're probably asleep or doing something with school. But outside of that, we're always usually somewhat together or somewhere nearby. So I think us being that close helps. I think it helped along with the chemistry early on. now I think it's something that's going to take us over the top when we need it.
Well, you're an Atlanta guy.
Yeah.
You're from that area. You know, I just moved here from
Yeah.
there. But growing up, last thing for you, what influences, what idols did you have in the game? If you wanted to emulate or be like somebody, who is that?
Role model, I would say my father. He's just the epitome of, I think, what a man should be.
Right.
He served in the Army for 10 plus years, and he kind of just always was on me. I mean, I was the only boy out of 3 girls, so I mean, it kind of was tough for me growing up. I mean, he wasn't the basketball guy, he was the football guy, but I mean, for life it would be him. But basketball-wise, I would definitely say one of my high school coaches, Sharman White. He taught me how to win. I came from a situation where I didn't play as much. We still won, but he really taught me how to win, and I think that's why my high school resume looks so good, because he taught me what it meant to be a point guard and what sacrifices I have to make for your team to win, for you to shine. So, I mean, those would be my 2.
Well, I really appreciate the time, man, and you coming over here. Obviously, congrats on the way things
Thanks
are
for
going.
having
Let's
me.
see if we can get Furman a couple of days
Yes,
from now,
sir.
too.
Can't wait to see you Wednesday.
All right. That is Madison Durr, the Bulldogs point guard, spending some time with us here at El Jefe. Sooner or later, I was due to get that right, and I did. And we will take a break right here. Coach will come back on the other side. We'll look ahead, and we'll preview what's coming up on Wednesday when Furman comes to town. Right now, we take another time out. This is the Ed Conroy Show, presented by Cutwater Spirits, and we're live at El Jefe at 468 King Street in downtown Charleston. Back with more after this on the Citadel Bulldogs Radio Network. All right, Joe. So, Here in downtown Charleston at 468 King Street. And Coach Conroy back on board now, and two tough acts to follow. I've had 3 point guards in the building tonight between yourself and Cameron, and then, of course, Madison.
That's right. That's right. No, those two are terrific representatives of the Citadel and our program, and thrilled to have Cam back. All-time leading scorer, school history. Tremendous example of, he was a guy that played on a team that set the school record for losses in the season.
Right.
And then he was a guy that played on the team that set the school record for wins in the season. So he knows building a program. He knows fighting through tough times. He knows resiliency, and we always talk about the tougher times get, the better we get. And that means not, that you never accept losing, but you just get better at your processes every day, no matter what tough times you're going through around you. So just that fiber and backbone, and I think Madison is, by the time he's done here, he's going to have some numbers that are up there among the very best.
It's funny you bring that up. One of the elements of, and I read this piece, I referenced it earlier, the piece that Andrew Miller did with you and with Madison, talking a little bit about his adjustment into that point guard role and the fact that it's a very demanding type of role. It really can only help you that you have a guy like Cameron who played the role under you, played it exceptionally well to help shape Madison's game into what you're looking for.
No question. And fortunately, John Reynolds, another one on the staff,
right,
who was a point guard under us. So all those guys, and just terrific resources for him to, get information from and feedback and things like that. And so it doesn't always have to be one voice coming out, because no matter who you are, if it's one voice all the time, that can wear you out a little bit. And I'm sure I can be pretty demanding about, especially about that position. So great resources around him, and that was part of the plan with hiring those guys.
It was good the other night to see you get Cam Roberts and Levi back into games. And we talked about it a little bit earlier, the fact those guys both had some illness issues around the holidays and this and that. And as much as you more and more need that bench, now getting minutes for these guys, it's just going to help that much more.
No question. And I think, I see in practice that both, like Levi had a great practice today. He was very physical, and he's an athletic guy. I think our fans will really enjoy watching once he gets comfortable out there, because he can really attack the rim. Brings that athletic element to the game and that toughness. And then Cam has that size and physicality and an ability, natural ability to score. And, so I think the more they get out there, our fans will enjoy watching them play.
When you have such a young team, and then you have, in this case, at least to begin the season, you had the 3 grad transfer players. How do you kind of know who your starting 5 are, and obviously Keenan has probably played the more lion's share of bench minutes, especially since Christian has gone down, but how do you pick your spots at where you navigate using guys on your roster in certain spots to put them in the best position to succeed?
Well, and that's where I really challenged our first group. I think our core group is, and our starting group, like twice now, I think has been as good as anybody that we play. Our starting lineup early in the year I thought was terrific. And then when Winston went down and Christian went down, we had to reshuffle a little bit, and AJ was battling through his shoulder. Now I think with Keenan, I think we have a really good starting group, and then a talented but inexperienced bench. And so I've challenged those guys in the first lineup, like when they come out and don't get us a lead by, even if it's 2 or 4 or 6 points, it really provides a little margin for error for those guys coming off the bench.
Right.
They come in, they make one mistake, maybe it's a live ball turnover that goes the other way, and now all of a sudden you go from down 4 to down 6, and the other team has momentum, and you feel like you're fighting uphill all night. Whereas if they can leave that game with a lead and allow those guys to make a natural mistake that you make at this point in your career and play through it, it's a little bit different. And so really challenge our guys to get off to better starts.
It's really amazing, I think, how much the little things matter in the overall picture in a game. I mean, you talked about the and one earlier situation. You missed the front end of a 1-and-1. It's amazing how those possessions, those little things, and how they add up cumulatively over the course of a game. And in the end, when the dust settles and you've either won or you haven't won, you can look back at so many of those little things that went this way or that way.
Oh, the Chattanooga game was certainly an example of that. Like, you could look at the stat sheet at the end of the game, and we only turned it over 9 times.
Right.
And a lot of, the natural inclination would be that you pat yourself on the back that our team took care of the basketball. But then you look at it and you say, well, 3 of those were open court turnovers that led directly to layups that we could not defend.
Right.
We call them pick sixes, just like in football.
Right.
You can't defend those. And then those 3 free throw opportunities at the 7th, 8th, and 9th free throw, where we missed 6 potential points. those are empty possessions. So those 9 turnovers really were more like 12 or 13 or 14 turnovers.
Well, and you look at how many close games, and look, the vast majority of them are. Those little things have so often been the difference in terms of the outcome of the game.
They are, and our guys have been really good executing, whether it's a press or whether it's a changing defense or whether it's trying to score quick 2-for-1. We've been really good at the special situations and things like that. But we need to make sure we're in those positions in order to do them. And unfortunately, if we don't do better in conversion defense and getting back, taking away that 3, as explosive as this league is shooting the basketball, we won't find ourselves in those positions.
Well, you take on Furman Wednesday night. Again, it's a Pack the Mac night at McAllister Fieldhouse. And look, we encourage all of you, if you haven't been down there, even if you have whatever, get down there. It's a 7 o'clock opening tip between your Bulldogs and the Furman Paladins, an in-state rival. What could go wrong? Great atmosphere. Come out there and be part of it. That is Wednesday night. And, Coach, not just this game, but there's still a whole lot of basketball to be played and a whole lot of opportunities for guys individually and for the team to get better.
No question. There's a lot of basketball left. Obviously, you start with the Southern Conference tournament and what that means if you can get hot and get the right seed going into that thing and win those 3 games. But every game matters as far as seeding, and there's a lot of basketball left to be played. We have not hit the month of February yet. I've been very fortunate. I've been with Quentin Malora-Brown at Vanderbilt when we went on a terrific winning streak in through February. And then he was with my nephew last year when they did the same thing. I've been with other guys on our staff. I've been where there was one year at Minnesota we were down and out, and we did not lose a game in the month of February in the Big Ten. I've been at Coastal Carolina where we were 1-4 in the league, and we went on a 13-game winning streak. I've been at the Citadel where we had a losing record in the league, and then we won 12 straight. So there's no question it can happen. This team is capable of doing it. I told them, I've told them all along, we're selling ourselves short if we don't think that we can do it or let ourselves on the hook if we don't do it. I expect us to do it, and that's where we're headed. That's what we're working toward.
One of the things about the tournament format, too, it doesn't happen that often, but you can really get red hot going into a tournament. Even if you've had a really tough regular season, you suddenly get hot in the tournament, you can find yourself in the big tournament.
Man, that's one thing about college basketball. You really things change throughout the season. It is a long season, and you just have to keep fighting. Our guys are. We had a good practice today, and they keep fighting. Good things will happen, and once you win a game or two, momentum starts rolling. And like I told our guys, we'll know we're at our best when the scores of the games start looking like eerily similar.
Right.
Because that means we're dictating how the game is played. Right now we got a little too much variance in there, letting people get away from us a little bit. But we locked that thing down on defense, and those scores start to get to look the same. I love the fact that we can get to the free throw line and shoot free throws well. I love the fact that we have an inside attack. I love the fact that we're very efficient shooting the 3. You put those things together, you get yourself in some close games. We should win those games.
Well, Coach, want to say thanks as always. We'll look forward to talking to you on Wednesday, and we'll be part of the throng of people that packs the MAC.
Let's do it. Let's get that place packed, rocking, and nothing better than beating the Furman Paladins. So people ask me all the time who our rival is, and that's our longest-running rival, really, as far as it is. And I know guys out there listening, the Citadel Guard, the old Citadel Guard of Charlie Baker and guys like that know what I'm talking about. But Furman, that purple makes you puke, right? So we got to get Furman. And we did it last year because our crowd was behind us and we had a great atmosphere. Packed the MAC. I'm thrilled it's going to be. I can't wait to get out there in front of the Corps.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun. Coach, thanks. We'll see you Wednesday.
Thank you. Go Dogs.
All right, that's Coach Conroy, and this is the Ed Conroy Show presented by Cutwater Spirits. Thanks, as always, to our friends at El Jefe who have us here on Mondays to do the Ed Conroy Show. I want to say thanks, too, to Cameron Wells. I want to say thanks to Madison Durr, and thanks to the always illustrious Joe Mack running us back in the studio. That'll do it for us from El Jefe. I'm Brian Giffen. This is the Ed